Just before we get into it, just for those, that's the question we asked. Quick background on myself. I'm Saurav. I'm the founder of 5minutes.ai. I've been doing HR tech for quite some time now, and prior to this, I founded a company called Workbox, which is UK's #1 employee engagement platform, serving about 4 million employees. Part of that, and in total, I've spent about 25 years in tech with companies like Deloitte, Yahoo, Nokia, and other Silicon Valley startups, including my own. And 5 minutes, I just want to show you a quick 1 minute video for those who are not familiar with who we are, what we do. So let me just show you a quick video on 5 minutes. But effectively, we're a TikTok style skills-based workplace training platform, primarily driven by bite-sized learning. So I'll show you this quick video, and then we'll get into our presentation. Great. So that's background on 5 minutes. We're global. We work in about 80 plus countries. We've got some great customers, in the Africa, MENA region, companies, fintechs like Kuda, AZA Finance, Tunes, Transfer2, Ezra, and obviously we're really seeing a lot of interest and excitement from the region, and we're really keen to bring more partners on board in that region. So that's enough. About 5 minutes. Let's talk about how AI and microlearning can transform leadership development. Let's get into leadership development. Obviously, I'm sure you guys all know how important leadership development is for the success of companies. But let me just throw some stats out there, which you may have come across, which is, companies with strong leadership development are seeing 42% decrease in employee turnover. There's a lot of stats that Forbes and companies like Retorio have pulled in together, and they are more than 4x more likely that they outperform. These Forbes and Retorio have done a study across companies to see better leadership training and what does it mean in terms of the performance and outcomes for the business. And consistently, it has shown that it's companies with great leadership training, good leadership training, strong leadership training are outperforming their peer groups. The challenge, obviously, is that if employees are busy and don't have much time for training, the leaders and the managers are even busier. So there's a very little time available for busy managers, busy leaders. It's hard to create personalized learning experiences because managers can be across different functions, and it's aligning that learning with the organizational context or the manager's context is also very, very hard. And then keeping up to date with changing needs. Now you've got AI, next you'll have some other technology. How do you keep up with all this stuff? So I think those are the key challenges, already complicated by the fact that managers have very little time to train. And what we see as a result is that, very few people, these are studies again done by McKinsey and other renowned firms, that employees who say leadership development has actually prepared them for leadership, less than 15%. Most of them don't get any training. Most leaders, most managers don't really get any training. And senior leaders, top execs who feel that they have any programs that make an impact. This is a McKinsey study, it says less than 7%. So we can see how impactful leadership training can be. But at the same time, less than 7% of senior execs actually think they have programs that make an impact. That's a pretty appallingly low number. So it's not working. And so let's see how we can use tools like AI and microlearning to make this happen or take the first steps in that direction. So AI again, I presented the community a couple of months back on AI. What's really exciting about AI is that it is really what we call a top-down adoption curve as opposed to a bottom-up adoption curve, which means that leaders in companies are already using it. So this is a study done by BCG, 13,000 people in about 20 countries. About 90% of leaders, managers have already used Gen AI once. This is probably data from about 6 months back. Now the number is even higher. I think they're saying in the US there's 100 million actives on ChatGPT every month. So it's crazy. But the great thing is that the leaders and managers actually are actively using it already. So you don't have to train them. You don't have to tell them how great this product is because they're already using it. The second thing, which is really exciting about from a performance boost standpoint, is that this is again a study done by Harvard Business School and BCG, where they took two cohorts in terms of skill, knowledge and skill development. And the one cohort was the top skilled participants. The other cohort was the bottom skilled participants. And what they found was that by giving them ChatGPT, they were able to improve the performance of the bottom half by 43%, while the performance of the top half improved by 17%. The key thing here is that the gap between the top and the bottom performers reduced to about 4%. Now, this is pretty powerful because what this is saying is that AI can act as a great leveler to improve the performance of employees, the performance of all levels in an organization, including managers and leaders. So those are just two stats to show that, hey, AI is working well already, i.e. in the sense that, managers are using it actively, leaders are using it actively. So there's familiarity with the technology. And what it is doing is actually improving performance of these managers and leaders, which is, statistically proven across a large scale. Now let's talk about microlearning. So what is microlearning? So microlearning is basically consists of three concepts, which is chunking, spaced repetition, and active recall. So you take a piece of learning, you break it into smaller chunks, you then repeat it to users, and then you proactively encourage recall by asking quizzes, asking questions about what they have learned. This is how kids learn in school. This is, those who have kids, this is what kids do at school. They'll break things into smaller chunks, then they'll have assignments a week later, 2 weeks later to actively, they'll repeat the information, and then they will have assignments and quizzes to check your knowledge retention. So that's essentially what microlearning is. It is a better way to learn. It combats what we call the forgetting curve. I'm sure you experienced this. I experienced this a lot when I learned something, and a week later, I'm like, what did I learn? I've forgotten everything. So what microlearning does through chunking, repetition, recall is it cements the knowledge retention in our brain, in our hippocampus. It strengthens our neural connections because whenever you're doing a recall, you're actually exercising your neural muscles. And just like you exercise, when you're running or you're gymming or you're meditating or yoga, it's just exercising your neural muscle to pull back the information that you learned. So that's just strengthening it. It's retaining it for longer. And it's basically a much, much better way to learn, which is why a lot of big companies, well-known brands, are actually using it for training their leaders. So Google has something called Whisper classes or Whisper program, where it's essentially a bunch of nudges they send their managers, and it's basically based on the principles of microlearning. They've been doing this since 2018. So they've been kind of pioneers in this space, as Google is in a lot of technologies, because that Whisper program helps them coach their managers through gentle nudges, which they receive on a periodic basis. And what microlearning for leadership and across the board for employee training has shown that it is actually it's 50% better in terms of knowledge development, and it actually has retention, which is 2 years more than normal training, one-off training programs. So essentially, it's been proven microlearning and training as a much better tool to not only from a knowledge retention and knowledge development standpoint, but also to fit into the busy schedules that our managers have. Because one of the top reasons, as you know, and I know, is that people say they don't have time to learn, and managers are even busier than ever. So what happens when you combine these two together, when you bring the power of microlearning, which is proven, works in the flow of works for busy schedules, and AI personalization? That's when you can combine the two and really take your leadership development and manager training to the next level. And I'm going to show you how you can do it. And I'm going to show you some examples of how we do it at 5 minutes. Now, what's important to understand is that this is exactly the two of the biggest learning platforms in the world, which are consumer-driven learning platforms, Duolingo and Khan Academy, do precisely this, right? They're micro-learning systems. Duolingo in particular is a micro-learning system for language learning. And then now with Duo Max, and Khanmigo, both these biggest consumer learning platforms have brought together the bite-sized power of learning and Gen AI. So it's already happening in the consumer world. Now let's talk about how you can take it to the world of leadership development and manager training and take that to the next level. So there are 5 key applications of AI and microlearning to leadership development as we see it. So first and foremost, and I'm going to take you through each and every one of them. So first and foremost, it can help you implement the flipped classroom approach to leadership development in a lot easier way. It can help you personalize skill development, skill-based learning for your managers at scale. It can help your leaders become better managers. And fourth thing is around how do you actually upskill your leaders and managers in AI? Because if you want your organization to be successful in this new AI world, you got to make sure that your leaders and managers are using AI the right way so they can transmit that information to the rest of the employees. Plus, you want to make sure they're not using it the wrong way, because we already know that a lot of them are using it heavily already. And then finally, you can actually use it to your advantage, both AI and microlearning, to help empower managers to do some of the training. So you can do the more strategic stuff, and managers can do some of the heavy lifting and do some of the L&D and training themselves, and take some accountability and take some responsibility of training and their teams. So those are the 5 things we're going to cover. Flipped classroom, how do you do skills-based learning for managers at scale? How do you help them become better managers through coaching and feedback using AI? And how do you teach them about AI? How do you train them in AI? And how do you actually empower them to do some of the training activity themselves? So let's talk about the first one. So the flipped classroom approach. So what is the flipped classroom approach? The flipped classroom approach is essentially where instead of just doing classroom training, you complement it with pre and post classroom sessions. So what that means is that, you do your session, which is your in-person or virtual training session run by the HR or the L&D team. But pre-session, you assign them some learning, some training, some interactive case studies that they can prepare before they get to the session. Now, this is how, again, in universities, or, master's programs, and I did my MBA, I had case studies, I had a classroom session, I prepared my case study before. So when I went to the session, I was much more prepared. And then post-session, you basically use that to record the reflections from the session. You follow up with recaps and recall, and you can advance schedule training again, more like recap training. So if you've gone through in a 2-hour session on, learning how to do coaching and feedback, pre-session, you assign them some content on coaching and feedback, some case studies to see and assess what level they're at. Then you know that your 2-hour session can be much more effective because people are trained already or have learned something already. The session can be used for interactive discussions, getting their feedback, and then post-session, you can assign them more training as recap training, just for coaching and feedback as an example. So, and then, you can do a lot of this stuff digitally. You can track completion rates. You can see how they're progressing, rather than just doing one half-day session, which half the people may forget a week later, and more will forget a couple of weeks later. So this is a much better way. In fact, a study done by University of Cambridge, they looked at a lot of different cohorts. They looked at 3 cohorts of learners where they applied this approach, and they asked the question, and they measured how this flipped classroom approach did compared to the traditional learning, one-off learning formats. And they found that, across pretty much across all cohorts, everybody said that using a flipped classroom approach, they felt that they learned a lot more than traditional learning methods. So the learning outcomes were much, much better with this approach. And by the way, that's how universities and educational institutions do it. It's only in the workplace that we throw people into one session, do the training, don't do any pre-learning, post-learning, and then expect them to remember everything and change behavior. So statistically proven that flipped classroom works much better. Now, how we implement flipped classroom through our platform is that, and again, you can do it with whatever tool you have. So in our platform, we have pre-configured micro courses, playlists, or lessons. So customers and partners who use our product, if they are running a theme, let's say, again, on coaching and feedback for their managers, they will assign some lessons before the face-to-face sessions through our platform. They'll assign some case studies, and then they'll be able to track when they run the live session. And again, on our platform, you can run a live session through Zoom. They'll be able to track on our live session who has actually completed those micro courses, what is the level of completion and knowledge development. Then they'll run the live session, get the feedback, get that interactive conversation going, answer the questions, and then post session, they will assign them another recap micro course or recap lessons so that they can actually track who has learned what. There'll be recap flashcards as well. So there'll be automated training recaps. So a week after the training, 2 weeks after the training, you're still getting lessons so you can remember and recap what you learned. And then they are able to track that through completion rates on our platform and also skill developments by the charts that we have on our platform. So that's a simple way in which we kind of automate the whole flipped classroom approach process for managers, because we are allowing you through the platform to assign micro content. Then you can run the session, and then post session, you can also assign future courses. Now, obviously, you can do it another way. You can use other tools that you have. The key is to break this training down into pre and post classroom, assign micro lessons, pre classroom, have an interactive discussion, and then post classroom, assign, again, micro learning and sessions. So you don't have to use our platform. You can. We just make things a lot simpler, but you can do it with other tools and doing manual activity around it. The second way in which AI and microlearning can really revolutionize leadership development is by helping you build skills-based leadership development programs at scale. So what that means is that, obviously there's a big trend towards skills-based learning, skills-based organizations. That's the future in the way technology is changing. It's all about upskilling people. It's not necessarily role-based learning always. It's how do you empower people by getting them the right skills they need at the right point on time. And the skills they need is also changing over time. So this process needs to be really, really dynamic. So what does a skills-based learning program mean? So first of all, creating about skill maps or skill taxonomies for specific roles, measuring the skill gaps for people in terms of how far they are in terms of their knowledge or development in a certain skill. Then you can map the proficiency levels. What do you expect across each skill? What is the level of knowledge you expect? Creating skill-based paths, doing assessments, and keeping this feedback loop in process. Now, this obviously can seem a bit overwhelming, but thanks to AI, lives become easier, and you can do this much more effectively using AI, and I'll show you how. Now, a lot of companies, I was talking about how there's a massive trend towards skills-based learning. So companies like Microsoft, IBM, Apple, they've all moved to this kind of approach as opposed to just pure role-based training. They're complementing it with skills-based training. So I want to show you quickly how you can use Gen AI to do that. So, remember I talked about creating skill-based skill maps for a role. Again, that's where ChatGPT and Gen AI tools are a good friend of yours, where you can go to ChatGPT and say, hey, I want to do, for a manager in a fintech or a manager in an operations business, what is the skills taxonomy, skills map that you would prescribe? You can also take it down to the next level and say, okay, create a curriculum for a skills-based learning program for a manager in a certain context or in a certain role. So we've done that as an example. We've created, thousands of learning pathways across a bunch of skills. We have created competency levels, proficiencies, and we've used some very advanced generative AI mapping for that. And here's an example of a prompt. I would just got half the prompt here because it's a long prompt. So let's say, I wanted to create a whole, skill map, proficiency level for a skill like customer support. How would I do that? So this is how I would use generative AI, which would be the skill name is customer support, describe the skill, and I have to create levels within that skill to teach the skill level 1, 2, 3. I will describe what the level is. Level 1 is a professional, level 0 to 2 experience. And this could be your context. You can define your context. And I would say generate a curriculum where each lesson has a title and description, and each of the levels should have different sub skills. And so basically, you've taken a skill called customer support and created a whole level of proficiency levels and a detailed curriculum for each of those proficiency levels using Gen AI. Now, this would take weeks to do. And now you can do it across scale. Again, we do it. We've done thousands of learning pathways on our platform. Thousands of proficiency levels are defined. And obviously, there's some sophisticated prompting that goes behind it. But again, as I said in my last webinar 2 months ago, the only one person who can teach you Gen AI really properly is yourself. So the more you practice, the more you play with it, the more you will learn. And I'm sure some of you guys are pretty good and experts at it. So that's how you can use AI to drive skills-based leadership development. And again, skills-based leadership development is create that skill map, do some kind of a gap analysis the way you would do it, map the proficiency levels and the different competencies at those proficiency levels, and then create those pathways for them, do some assessments, and then have that feedback loops. And I think this is really essential as the world moves towards skills-based learning. How we do it on our platform for our customers is that, again, when you pick a role on our platform, if you're a manager, we give you the skill-based pathways straight away. So you pick a role, you automatically get attached skill-based pathway. Again, as a leader, you'll have a leadership skill map on our platform. Then we have created skill-based learning paths. Again, as I said, we have different proficiency levels, level 1, 2, 3, 4, that are defined on our platform. And again, using Gen AI, we have created assessments and thousands and thousands of high quality assessments. And then as you're doing those assessments, you're going up levels, and you can see how your skills are developing. And the assessments we have done are very high quality. There are micro case studies. There are multiple choice questions, but you can do that as well. It'll take time. Obviously, we automate the process and we do it at scale, and everything's nice. But if you wanted to, you can also do it yourself thanks to Gen AI, and by using the right prompts, and by just putting some effort into it and going back and forth. So that's how the second point, which is how AI and microlearning can help you drive skills-based learning for your leaders. The third one is around how do you help leaders become better managers. Now, I have a question here because I see a lot of comments on the chat. Demola, shall I carry on or shall I pause for questions?
I think you can go. You can go on.
Okay, fine. Good. So, okay, cool. So, third point is how do you help leaders become better managers? Now, just because you've been promoted doesn't mean that you've been trained on how to be a better manager, how to motivate your people. So AI is actually advancing pretty rapidly in that space. It's pretty clear. It's a lot of surveys have been done. Like HBR did a survey, we said that, hey, leaders whose responsibilities have increased, they have 20% higher rate of anxiety and a 5x higher rate of burnout. So now what we're seeing is that there are tools that are coming out which are already giving real-time coaching and feedback in specific areas. So for example, Gong, the sales enablement, one of the top sales enablement softwares, analyzes sales calls, gives real-time feedback and insights available. Again, in the medical setting, we've got a tool in the US called Elios, which takes notes and summarizes insights in a doctor setting and gives real-time coaching to the medical professionals. So there are AI tools that are coming out that are giving real-time coaching and feedback. And this is again where you can use Gen AI and the power of ChatGPT prompts, and also encourage your managers to use them in the right way. So for example, if I'm a manager or you're coaching a manager who's about to do a one-on-one session, which is giving, so let's say you are as a L&D person or your HR lead are about to give feedback to someone who's probably more senior than you on how they should not micromanage. Again, this is where generative AI, ChatGPT can be your friend. You can define the whole context to ChatGPT, and get some recommendations on how to manage that conversation. And similarly, your managers, if you can train them, or your leaders, if you train them to be better managers and give better coaching and feedback, they can again use Gen AI, whether it's ChatGPT or Google. They can base the whole situation on on ChatGPT and get some feedback on how to manage the conversation with their peers. So if I'm about to have a difficult conversation, I could again get some really, really good feedback from Gen AI tools and then manage that conversation. And that's one of the key things a leader needs to learn. It's not about how many people you manage, it's about how you manage them. How do you respond to challenging situations? How do you have those difficult conversations? How do you keep people accountable? So all of this stuff, users can go to Gen AI, ChatGPT, available for free, and get that feedback. They just need to be nudged by you to go and use that tool. What we will see in the future is also AI coaches. So Coach Hub, a US based company, has announced some AI coach, but also on ChatGPT, if you search, we've now got what we call custom GPTs and there's a leadership GPT where there's a leadership code which has got already 1,000+ downloads. This was 3 months ago, so I'm sure it's a lot more now. Where there's a leadership coach where it's a custom GPT. So you go to ChatGPT, you click on custom GPT, and then you search for leadership coach, and that's a custom GPT where you can actually ask questions and it'll give you very, very good results on all about leadership and coaching. So this is the next wave of AI coaches that are coming, whether on ChatGPT or other tools. On our platform, we're also working on releasing AI Copilot, which is and custom GPTs for skills. So you can ask Hugo, which is our mascot, your AI coach, get some feedback on real time, and it can work as your AI Copilot, whether you're a manager or you're a specific professional who's focusing on certain types of skills. So the next wave of AI coaches is coming, but currently you already have an AI coach for leaders, and that's generative AI tools like ChatGPT or Gemini. And on ChatGPT, you can also use custom GPTs like the leadership GPT. So that was the third point, which is around how do you actually coach them to become better managers. It's become a lot easier thanks to AI and a number of the free tools that are out there. The fourth thing, I think this is something that's really, really key, in my opinion. And this is where most companies are not doing as well as they can. This whole AI wave is just exploding, right? I can't keep up being an AI myself, and I'm sure you can't either. There's new technologies, new things happening constantly, and there are predictions around how it's going to impact the world of work. This is a study that Accenture did where it said that almost 40% of working hours, 40% of working hours across all industries are going to be impacted by AI adoption. So financial services really on top. Any language-based tasks where we spend a lot of time doing language-based tasks in our job. A lot of these language-based jobs will have high levels of automation or AI assistance that will go into them. So this means that, and this is going to happen pretty fast. It'll be slow a little bit for a couple of years, and then it's going to happen really, really fast. And so it's really, really important in terms of this job shift that's happening that your managers actually know how to use AI properly, and they can be much, much more successful in their roles if they can use AI properly. So, and that's about helping them with the best toolkit to use these tools. So here's an example. So here's some of the tools that we use, and at 5 minutes, feel free to take a screenshot of this. And we're constantly experimenting. And obviously, ChatGPT is great. Google Gemini. Gemini is getting much, much better now. I'm so impressed how quickly Google has evolved their Gemini tool. And while I used to spend probably 90% of my AI work on ChatGPT, now I spend about 50-50 roughly on and Gemini and GPT and ChatGPT. But there are other tools out there. I think if you're looking at images, presentations, Canva, video, Synthesia. And again, the key is how do you empower your managers to learn about these tools so their job and their lives become a lot easier. What we're also seeing is that big companies are rolling out their internal chatbots, and so companies like Boston Consulting Group rolled out ChatGPT to everybody, Deloitte, law firms, and it's going to happen. Maybe not to everybody, but certain cohorts in other parts of the world. And one of the key things here is that micro learning is really the best way to teach people about AI. It's not about taking someone on a half day AI course because there's no, and then doing it after 6 months, because everything is changing so fast. Whatever you teach them in a half day AI course or 3 hour AI course, that's changing next month. So you're better off teaching people little and often. And this is where micro learning again becomes very, very powerful. Not only other managers have no time and you want to teach them AI, in that little slots they have available, but AI as a concept is so rapidly changing that the only way to learn it is through micro learning. And that's what a lot of companies are doing. Companies like Dropbox, PCG, and so on and so forth. Now, on our platform, for those who are already in our community, you can see you can just search for ChatGPT Gen AI, and you can see how much content that we have. If you want us to offer it to your employees, again, that's something we're happy to pick it up with you. But we have the most targeted functional catalog for AI across any learning platform, because our AI training is not about generic. It's very functional. How to use AI for marketing, how to use it for sales, how to use it for customer success, operation, so on and so forth. So that's our catalog. Again, you are obviously members of the community, so feel free to go check it out by just searching on the platform. And at least from an L&D standpoint, you will learn a lot about how you can use AI for L&D. Now, the last point is, how do you actually use this new power of AI and microlearning coming together to empower your managers or leaders to become better trainers themselves? Now, imagine if they could do some of the heavy lifting, if they could learn how to, create some of their own training, then you can focus not just on content generation, but on the more strategic aspects of learning and development. So the key is, how do you empower your managers? And we think that now with AI and microlearning, you can do that much, much more successfully than before. So, and the great thing is that if you can empower your managers to become trainers for their team, guide them in the right way, the impact is going to be much, much more. We all know that when managers learn, when managers are guiding their teams to learn, the uptake of learning and development is much, much higher. Managers are able to assess the skill gaps in real time, which is harder for L&D teams who are sitting at the top across hundreds of teams to do. So managers are in a much better way positioned to assess skill gaps, and the training also becomes much, much better aligned with the goals of the team. So if we can empower our managers, that's one of the best things we can do, in my opinion, for driving learning and development adoption inside an organization and build that overall learning culture that we all want to see from the companies that we work with. So what can, now in this new world, imagine if, you know, you empower the managers. What could managers do and what could L&D teams do? The roles could be slightly different. You could offload a lot of the heavy duty activity that you do to the managers, so they could create the content for their teams. They could create some of the learning paths thanks to AI. They could do their own skill assessments, again, thanks to AI, because it makes life a lot easier for them to do it. And then you become the resource support center for managers. You help them with the strategic questions they have. You make sure it's consistent across each and every team. And most importantly, you make sure that they're using AI in a safe and ethical manner, because most people right now don't know how to use AI. And even though they're using it, they're really not using it in the right way from a company context. So that's how, the roles and the shift may happen. It's not going to happen tomorrow. But if this happens over time, we're going to all be able to build a lot more successful learning culture inside an organization. And on our platform, we really have empowered managers. So when our partners use our product for their company, where their managers are able to add content, their managers are able to assign playlists to their teams and really just run with it. So we're really empowering managers to run upskilling inside their teams and working hand in hand with our L&D partners, and to manage the skill gaps and measure the skill gaps. So that's how our kind of platform works. So again, those are the kind of 5 things, we talked about, we're going to cover, which is, the 5 areas in which, AI and microlearning are helping, which is easier implementation of the flipped classroom approach. It can help you do personalized skill-based development for your managers at scale. It can help you help your leaders become managers through coaching and feedback. Again, using AI tools. Um, you can teach your managers and leaders about AI, the right use of AI, the ethical use of AI, the safe use of AI. And then finally, we now have the tools where we can actually empower managers to do a lot of the heavy lifting when it comes to training and development, leaving you, the L&D and the HR teams, to focus on the more strategic aspects of talent development and becoming the coaches for your managers to use AI in a safe and ethical way. So those are the kind of 5 things we covered. I want to quickly jump to answer the question that we asked before, which was, uh, how will AI when will AI outsmart? So there was about 14 people who said never. So this is Elon Musk, classic Elon Musk. He thinks it's going to be 2025. Um, then you have Sam Altman, Demis Hassabis. The Demis is the guy behind Google's DeepMind and all AI activities, and Sam Altman is obviously the founder of AI. He thinks by 2030, and then on the right you've got Liane LeCun, who's responsible for all of Meta slash Facebook's AI activities, and he says beyond 2030. So in our group, I think 14 people, so roughly about how much is that? So 14 out of the 20, 70% of people said never. There was a very bullish contingent of 3 who said it's going to be next year, like Elon Musk. So you guys are in the Elon Musk camp, and then Jan LeCun and Sam Altman camp. There are a couple of you guys in that camp. I'm in the Jan LeCun camp. I think it's probably 2030 onwards. That's my view, but really no one knows what's going to happen. So there's one last thing. There's a little micro course we have on our platform. Feel free to take a screenshot of this QR code, and that, again, as you're a member of the OLXD community, you'll have access and link to the course on this platform straight away. And it's some really cool content on there. If you haven't seen it already, it may be worth checking out. So it can help you use AI specifically for your L&D activities. I think that's pretty much it from my side.